People tell me all the time, we don't have racism in Montana. For nearly a decade, I have been leading anti-racism education throughout our state. And I'm often asked, why? We don't have racism in Montana. Our state has not been immune from the United States' ongoing history of racism. Throughout Montana in 2020, support was rallied for justice for Black lives and to stop the unequal treatment of Black people. A picture is worth 1,000 words. Kalispell, Great Falls, Missoula, Butte, Helena, Bozeman, and Billings. Black folks across the state stood up and shared the different ways they have been discriminated against because of their race. As a Black person, I related deeply to the concerns and the experiences that were shared. It really made me start to think about the different experiences I have had as a Montana resident. One day, I was walking around one of my favorite shops, engaging in some good old-fashioned retail therapy, when I noticed an employee started stocking shelves next to me. Of course, at first glance, I didn't think much of it. I just went about my business. However, I did notice that the employee never looked me in my eyes, greeted me, or asked me if I needed help. I figured they're probably busy and just focused on their job. I continued my shopping, and I entered a new aisle, and now let me tell you, I wasn't even there for 30 seconds before that same employee entered the same aisle as me and started sifting around the shelves. Again, I tried not to think too much of it. I figured it was just a coincidence. That was until I went into a completely different part of this store, and the same employee followed me again. I looked to my left. I looked to my right. I looked all around, and I didn't see anyone else being followed. Why? Because I was the only Black person in the store. I felt hurt. I felt embarrassed. But mostly, I felt like I didn't belong in my own community. This is nothing new for Black people, and it's nothing new for Black people in Montana. After the abolition of slavery, tens of thousands of formerly enslaved people fled to the north, including Montana, searching for jobs, security, and safety. Some Black refugees entered the military. James Bolden, also known as Jim Bolin, was one such Black man. He lived in Butte for a number of years, and he eventually moved to Crow Agency, where he flexed his artistic and handy abilities, making the children shoes for free. Throughout Montana in the 1920s, the Ku Klux Klan was a powerful force. They were active all over Montana in Billings, Livingston, Helena, and they actually established more than 46 different chapters. They even held events just a few miles away from here at Bozeman Hot Springs. As with the National Klan, the Montana Klan opposed racial minorities, immigrant groups, Catholics, and Jews, and were involved in local and state political issues. James Bolden believed the North to be a safe haven free from Southern racism. Unfortunately for James, that did not happen. He was spotted by the Bighorn County Sheriff, Robert Gilmore, who was, mind you, a KKK member, as evidenced by this special arrangement displayed on the sheriff's casket during his funeral. Word of an altercation between the two men led to then a mob of men who murdered James Bolden for being Black in Montana. I visited the site where James lost his life, and I thought long and hard about the impacts of racism and threats of violence against Black folks in our state. Lynchings didn't just happen in the South, they happened here, in Montana. And these threats never went away. As a matter of fact, the Montana Human Rights Network is currently tracking 7 different racial hate groups in our state. On the most extreme end, there are acts of violence, threats of intimidation against Black folks perpetuated by armed vigilantes and extremist groups, as anyone who was downtown Bozeman on the afternoon of June 5th, 2020, witnessed at the rallies for Black Lives. Racism is ongoing throughout our state in seemingly subtle acts of intimidation, much like what I experienced that day in the store. It is not subtle, however, to those of us on the receiving end of it, folks who look like me. To us, it's like experiencing 1 million tiny little lynchings every time you leave your home. I invite you to consider that we too have a very dark history. And it is time light was shed on this history and focused on our part in creating equity. Take this awareness and talk to your family and your friends about race and racism. Maybe be bold enough, courageous enough to take action. Address the store clerk following around the only person of color in the store. Or take it one step further and connect with local organizers or equity consultants like myself to support anti-racism strategies happening in your community. I'll leave you with this. The next time you hear the phrase or something like, "We're not racist here in Montana," how will you address it? Thank you.